everyone to the Rebirth Summit 2026. I'm Philip Wolfk, Managing Director of Main Street Advisory and Philip Speaks. Through Main Street Advisory, I facilitate funding for real estate investors and entrepreneurs. Through Philip Speaks, I am an author, speaker, coach, where I provide engagements in the areas of financial literacy, home ownership, real estate investing, and self-empowerment, facilitating transformation from limiting beliefs to possibility thinking. Today, I have the pleasure of interviewing Hadassah Rose. Hadassah has an MS in education. She is a medical speech language pathologist, a best-selling co-author of The Power Within, powerhouse speaker, and creator of the Communication Lab. With 15 plus years treating neurocognitive communication disorders, she teaches language as sacred stewardship, decoding fear-based speech patterns, and restoring trauma-informed expression. Shaped by resilience and devoted to honoring God through pure speech, she equips leaders to align voice, nervous system, and kingdom purpose. Clients describe her as bold, discerning, and transformative. Her message calls believers to speak truth without distortion, steward language as a vessel of fire and healing. Welcome to the show, Hadassah.
Thank you so much, Philip. What an honor to be here. Thank you for the organization and every opportunity and just hearing everybody's stories. It's been extraordinary already.
Oh, absolutely. So let's dive into it. So tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of what life was like before transformation. Describe the situation emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Just help us feel where you were, where you started.
Thank you. This is such a good question to start with. I was sexually assaulted early on in my life, and I didn't know that I was sexually assaulted until later on in life. And so I had this air and this undertone of trauma that I didn't have a conscious awareness of. And because of that, I made decisions that were ongoing, that were terrible decisions, one after the other. And I gained knowledge and experience in places where I shouldn't have been as a child and as a teenager
Right.
and as a young adult. And I later found out that I had endured a series of traumas early on in my life, but my life was juxtaposed as a child in that same vein in
Right.
service. And so I not only had this undertone of trauma, but I also had this desire for service. And so I started working with children when I was a child. I started
Mhm.
helping reading. I started volunteering at the nursing home, feeding
Right.
patients and seeing people who needed help. And my heart was just in that place of help. In
Right.
my giving, I was allowed to give myself some recollection of love and sight into myself in those places that I didn't have adults looking out for me. I
Oh,
can't
sure.
say that my family, I can't say that my family was bad because they didn't know what I had gone through. I told nobody. For most
Right.
of my life, I was silent and I repressed because I didn't know how to express what I had gone through. And I didn't have the words or the vocabulary to fully endure what I had experienced from a place
Oh,
of true
absolutely.
groundedness. And
Yeah.
in that repression, I made poor choices in my relationships and the people and the crews that I hung out with. And I ended up in places that I shouldn't have been
Oh, sure.
multiple times in my life. And I
Right.
will say that in those places, I was guided by a light that I didn't understand. And I am
Sure.
so
So,
grateful for that light that just guided me through that. I see the crimson cord of greatness
right.
throughout everything that I endured.
So
And
what was the turning point? What? What happened that really
Yes.
forced change to help you kind of face your reality, and then what did you do with that information?
I moved to the United States to get my master's in speech language pathology. And after that, I moved to Florida to take my first job. And in that space, I met a person who would throw me off a motorcycle and try to kill me 2 times. And
Wow.
I ended that relationship. And obviously, I had to get out as quickly as possible. I just knew I couldn't stay. But after it was all said and done, I had an awareness that said, well, I must think pretty terribly about myself if I allowed those things to happen. And
Right.
that was my first inkling of I need to look at something, but I didn't do anything about it then. And then in 2013, I was working at a forensic mental health hospital where I was getting trained by a nurse, and they were talking about the women's studies that were happening there that said 85% of women have been sexually assaulted in their lifetime, and the other 15% are lying, or they don't remember, or they don't know how to communicate it. And I thought to myself, 100% of women have been sexually assaulted in their lifetime. Huge. And all the
Right.
amnesia memories of what I had from all of the sexual assault I had experienced from my younger life had come into my conscious awareness. And I had a moment there to look at what I was going through and to become aware fully of what I had actually endured.
Right. Right. So tell us a little bit about, you know, your internal process, dealing with the fears, the breakthrough, the healing, decisions, and then the steps you took to move forward.
Well, as a result of my trauma and the violations that I experienced by numerous human beings, I developed a mistrust of humans and I couldn't trust anybody. So even if I had friends, I didn't trust them. And my family, I didn't trust them. My teachers, I didn't trust them. And then I had people in my life telling me that I would never amount to anything. So I just didn't trust human beings. And
Right.
I was shut down in my expression as a child. So I found myself looking internally and asking those internal questions like, who am I? Where am I? Why am I here? Why did I endure that? And I had this earnest desire to know the truth. And because
Right.
of that, an earnest desire, many of us would call this seeking first the kingdom. And so I
Mhm.
had that desire. I wanted to know God. I wanted to know the inner parts of myself. And I learned how to trust that inner voice of myself that said, relax, otherwise you're going to break something. Like you need to
You're
run
right. Right.
away now. Like leave now, gather your things quietly and move on. I
Right.
learned to
So
listen.
was it your faith that led you through that journey?
I would say it's the development of my faith because at the
Okay.
time I had a discipline of religion that is completely different than what I'm
Right.
experiencing now. And
Sure.
it I would say that faith was developing in my constant seeking of that truth.
You're right. Right. So, do you have anyone in your life that really supported that journey, or was it more of an internal journey as your faith built around your consciousness?
My mother was the most extraordinary woman. She still is, and she was my
Hmm.
biggest supporter through everything that I went through. I never told her the truth about what I had endured as a child until later
Yeah.
in my life in my 30s. But she was always rooting for me. She always supported everything I said. And I remember leaving home and knowing that I would never return home. You know that moment where you're like,
You're
I'm
right.
leaving and I'm never coming back in the same way again. And I remember
Right.
looking at her with my car packed and the truck there, and I was moving to the United States. And I looked at her and I said, Mom, what if I don't make it? And she looked at me and she said, I have every confidence in you that you are going to make it and it's going to be amazing. And I will always carry those words with me. And those are the exact same words I say to my patients every moment they are in a trauma or they're experiencing medical hardship.
Oh, yeah. So tell us how has life changed for you and what's different now?
Well, Through my work as a speech language pathologist working in the medical industry, I've worked with multiple diagnoses, including neurodegenerative disorders, impact strokes, brain injuries, metabolic disorders, falls, anything you can name, I have worked with
Oh,
in
yeah.
terms of cognitive
Right.
rehab. And so what has allowed me to participate in their life as a transformative agent is because I'm so reconciled with myself and how I have shown up for myself in my own trauma, I can show up for them in those places. And when people come
Right.
to impacts like that are extreme, right? Like they're okay, and then all of a sudden something happens. And because
Right.
of that, there's this downward spiral into what is my life going to be like? What am I going to do? And there's a loss of inspiration. And because
Oh,
of
sure. And
that,
a deep level of uncertainty.
exactly. And I
Yeah.
get to be in that place with them that allows them to recreate a possibility where there was none in that impact. And so
Right.
I did that for myself because I've experienced such hardship through
Oh, sure.
trauma, abuse, homelessness, losing my job, losing money, losing my house, losing everything. And
Right.
because of that, I have learned how to communicate those things in a manner that allows people who come into my presence to access those levels of conscious goodness to
Right.
recreate their life in those places too.
Oh, sure. So would you say in terms of your business, your your life's journey is kind of transformed into the work that you do to support others that are going through these various challenges?
Absolutely. I remember I was working with this one guy in Texas and he was so depressed. His wife had
Mhm.
just fallen. She was in the facility and then he got aspiration pneumonia and he was in the facility and he just didn't want to do anything. And I thought to myself, well, I can't go in there and be like, let's do some exercise. Like that's not the thing that I could have done in that moment. So I
Right.
went in and I just tuned in to my spirit and I was like, what can I do? So I brought markers and pens and colored paper and scissors and tape. And he used to look at this empty wall all day long. And so I
Right.
asked him stories of his inspiring life and of the people that
Right.
he loved. And I keyworded all of that and I put it up on the wall in this beautiful little collage. And
Mhm.
couple weeks went by and he started getting up out of bed and getting
Right.
to his recovery. And he said to me when we were sharing a pint of Tahitian ice cream because he was on a
Mhm.
modified diet and he couldn't have the ice cream. So when he brought me
Okay.
the ice cream and he shared with me that that collage was such a game changer for him because it helped him tap into what life was meaningful for him
Oh, sure.
beyond
Absolutely.
what he was impacted by.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So at that point, he was ready for physical therapy.
Oh, it was so good. He was so good. Yes.
So what message would you have for anyone that, is listening to you that might be stuck in whatever their situation or circumstance in terms of kind of getting from there and moving to the other side?
A stuck state is an opportunity. It is a hidden gem of something that is tethered way back in the past that needs some sort of redemption, recovery, and reconciliation. And if we can
Right.
bring awareness to that by the way we're speaking, analyze what we're saying, analyze how we're saying it, how we're stringing together words, where the root of those words come from, we can find
Right.
exactly where that happened and we can learn to reconcile that. Ultimately, we're looking for reconciliation and redemption and a sense of peace through our life experience, not because we're wanting to prove something, but because we want to be okay with what we went through. And we want others to
You're right.
be okay with what they went through too. One of my greatest prayers is being able to stand in front of a person and just be a healing energy in front of them that they too
You're right.
can manifest that healing in front of them. And so this is what I focus on when I'm in front of my patients and in front of my clients and going forward teaching people that language is medicine and we can use
Oh,
and
absolutely.
wield medicine for ourselves in that way.
Oh, absolutely. Well, Hadassah, it's been a real pleasure and a joy hearing your powerful story. Thank you so much. This has been another incredible conversation here on Rebirth TV. Stay tuned for more interviews and of courageous speakers from all over the world. Until next time, this is Rebirth TV signing off.